afternoon, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet on the CBO biweekly technical assistance call. I have Tammy Stone with me, and then we have a couple of other guests with us. I want to go over some basic housekeeping things, and then that will give everybody a chance to be on the call by the time we have the Mdrc people talk about the information that we're going to be sharing there. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about numbers, and I've got the spreadsheet that I did here. I'm going to make it so you guys can read it a little bit better. And so we did some dashboard cleanup things, and we've got some stuff going on, and we're going to talk about a little bit with the updates. So what we did was we separated out the new cohort pending applications who have not had their scheduled appointment yet. So that's what made this application not started row a whole lot cleaner. But we still have some people who have not completed their applications. So we've got 5 from Albany Park, we've got 5 from Jane Addams, 6 from OAI and Phalanx, and then some 3s and 2s and 1s. So if you guys can get those customers to complete their application, if they came once and have not returned and they're not going to return, then we need to send out a conciliation appointment for them and get those scheduled so that they get back in. If they fail to attend their conciliation appointment, you mark them as such, and the DHS office has to take over. We've got 4 items under 2151. That means their initial intake appointment, their initial appointment with you. We've got 4 from Albany Park and 3 from Jane Addams. If you do a 2-step process, I know I was on the phone with Jane Addams the other day. They do a 2-step process where they come for the initial appointment and then they come back for a one-on-one. If that's your process, then you need to be at least submitting an assessment completed, 2151, until you get that second step done. So if that's the case, we need to get those done. Enrollment required, there's quite a few people in here. There's quite a few people in here in this enrollment required. Phalanx, you're the big winner there with 7, and Albany Park, you've got 6. So I don't know if it's a process there for you guys too, but we've got to get some enrollments done. And one of the things that I discovered trying to help Autumn out from Mantricon is that if you don't mark the customer as enrolled, they never move out of the appointment scheduled row. So let's make sure that we're getting the applications completed and then also getting the enrollments done. And then, of course, the same process applies. You have to do a 2151A. So if you are doing the new customers, you still have to do that initial 2151A for those customers with their planned activities. So we've got some people in there that have some working there. Now we also have the process in place that we gave you guys when we were doing all of our TA visits. If you don't have that 11 by 17 4-sided colored document any longer, you can get it from the Epic Partner full list of resources, and if you aren't quite sure which one it is, while one of these other guys is talking, I will find that document and then put the link in the chat pod for you. Minimal progress, no progress, we're in pretty decent shape there, but just remember, everybody except for Springfield Urban League, if you've got a customer in one of those statuses, they need a conciliation. Completion status, Mantricon, you've got 10. Now what we did with, we found some customers who had been lost on the dashboard. We found them, we fixed them, and so that's what a lot of this completion status information is requiring of you. They may have already been completed, but because of us having to fix something, the completion status no longer counts. So if they actually are completed and they were completed at some previous point in time, you can just re-upload that same document, but it will have a current date on it, so it will take them out of that status. If it's somebody else, then you can just do that for that completion process that's in place right now. SNAP ineligible, that means that somebody from DHS has marked the customer as SNAP ineligible, and you need to update the completion information on them as well and do that 2151A. 2151A. All right, so Kelsey says, it doesn't affect this though, does it? Oh, you were talking about the two-step process. Yeah, you don't have anybody on that list, so you're good. Kendrea, I think, was talking about the assessment completed piece. All right. Okay, so I'm going to pull this down. We're going to go on to the next item on the agenda, which is to let you know that Western is now being called Ogden. So if you're doing your staffing reports or if you're trying to find them to add them to an appointment for a customer, they're now called Ogden. So make sure that you're aware of that. We also have a list of DHS office calls, and on our admin call yesterday, Deidre Wesley noted that the Englewood office, I believe it was Englewood, it might have been Roseland, I got confused, but we had a presentation done by Phalanx, and they were able to entice a few people to come to their agency and enroll in EPIC for part of the new cohort. So if you see, and I apologize to the rest of the state, but this is for Cook County. So if you see a time and date on there for an office where you would like to try to recruit some participants for the new cohort, please make arrangements. This will get added to the notes from today's webinar. So if you are able to attend one of the intakes, you can contact the primary contact from that office on our list of DHS primary contacts. That list gets updated about once a week. So you can take a look at that list and then talk to them about getting you in to go speak at their office. And we'll make sure that we put this in the notes as well. All right.
And just to follow up, that is highly recommended. I think it has good results if you can get in front of the customers at the DHS office. So if you can make that happen, I think that's a great idea.
And Kendrea said that she's done it at Mid-South, and they're very welcoming, so that's great. I know that Englewood reached out to a couple of the agencies. Deidre couldn't remember exactly which two they were, but that was something that they did. Now, the other piece that I'm trying to do with everybody is to get you guys to present on the DHS webinar on Fridays. It's every other Friday, so our next one is July 27th. Instituto presented on the 13th. I've got Catholic Charities has blown me off, Kendrea, 2 different times now. So I need one other presenter for the 27th, if not 2. So you get about 5 minutes to talk about your programs. We pull up brochures or handouts at all when we go, and we bring up your website. So if anybody else is willing to do the 27th, please let me know. You talk about 10:30, 10:30-ish, 10:20-ish, somewhere in there. So that's a good time. Let me know if you want to talk on the 27th or August 10th. JARC is already committed to August 10th, so let me know about that. All right, so we have 32 people on the call. We're going to now move into MDRC information. So I have, Tammy, do you want me to pull this pod over first and then share my screen, or what do you want me to do?
You can go ahead and share the screen if you'd like to, yeah. What we're going to share is just, and most of you, if you've been involved with the cost data study, are very familiar with this. So she's going to just bring up a blank example of the cost data study. And we do have Kelly and Julie with Mathmatica. With this new cohort, one of the things that is critical to do as far as the study is concerned is to only report costs related to the study group or the treatment group. So we've had conversations with them and with FNS on what the requirements are for that. So I'm going to turn this over to Kelly and Julie, and they're going to talk to you about how you're going to report on the next workbook.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for letting Julie and I hop on this call. So earlier this week, as was mentioned, Tammy sent out guidance regarding this change and how it affects your cost data workbooks. So we're here today just to review that guidance and answer a few related questions as they come up. So to start, I just want to define and make sure we're on the same page with respect to a few terms. So when we're saying new cohort, I'm just referring to clients who are receiving SNAP ENT pilot services who do not actually enroll in the SNAP ENT pilot study. So these individuals will not have EPIC study ID numbers, unlike study participants who are individuals who have enrolled in the pilot. So they've been randomized into EPIS, and they do have EPIC study ID numbers. So like Tammy said, we need to exclude the costs that are associated with this new cohort from the cost data workbooks. So we don't need this information reported elsewhere in a separate workbook or for any other reasons, at least for the purposes of Mathmatica's evaluation. As before, your workbook should also exclude costs associated with any other programs at your organization outside of the SNAP ENT pilot. So then with that, the workbook should only include costs that are associated with providing services to study participants. And we know that many providers cannot precisely differentiate between the costs of these new cohort clients and the study participants who are actually enrolled in the study itself. And so for this reason, we were working with Tammy and FNS to develop a method that we think accurately documents costs, which we'll soon describe. But before delving into all of those details, I just wanted to give kind of a short few-sentence summary of our approach. So in the cost data workbooks, which is what we're looking at here, we have our 4 different kinds of costs, which are on the 4 different tabs. So we have staff and volunteers, direct service costs, pilot supplies and equipment, and then finally overhead and operating costs. So it's my understanding that providers should be able to differentiate between direct service costs, so those on tab C, associated with the new cohort clients and the study participants. So being able to tell between those two. And if at all possible in your cost workbooks, you should keep reporting those direct service costs on tab C as accurately as you can for the study participants specifically. But for all other costs, so for staff costs, for the pilot supplies and equipment, as well as for the overhead and operating costs, we recognize that most organizations might have trouble differentiating specifically between those new cohort clients and the study participants. So for all of those costs, we just ask that you document costs as you normally would, but then multiply them by what we're going to be calling your study participant percentage. Excuse me. So what that means is the percentage of active clients who are study participants during the period of the workbook. So like I said, you should be able to identify study participants through the EPIC customer profile. So those with study IDs are participants, and those without study IDs are not participants. So you first want to figure out how many of the people coming to your organization and receiving these services actually have an EPIC ID number. And then you want to take that number and divide it by the total number of participants who received pilot-funded services at your organization. So that will give you the percent of the people that were coming through your doors to get these participants, or to get these services, who are study participants. And so then once you have that percentage, you can start updating your cost data workbook just like you would normally. So you'll go through, and then tab B, you'll list out your staff costs, but then when you're trying to estimate the percent of time that your employees spend with the study participants, you'll take the time that they spend on the pilot and multiply it by that study participant percentage. And then similarly, for tabs D and tab E, when you're estimating your supply and equipment costs, as well as when you're estimating your overhead costs, you'll figure out how much those costs for the pilot as a whole, so all of the customers receiving those services, and then multiply it by that percentage that you calculated earlier. The one difference, like I said, is for that direct service costs. At least it's our understanding that this can be reported with a little bit more precision. So being able to identify who exactly received the services, what those services cost, and if that person was a participant who had a study ID number, or someone who is in the new cohort who was just receiving those services. So those are the main updates with respect to the cost data workbooks and how we need those costs to be treated from the time that we started working with the new cohort clients. So that happened in the middle of May. So we ask that these changes be incorporated into your Quarter 2 2018 workbooks, which I'll be sending out by the end of this week. So if you've been a little antsy for those, sorry for the delay. We wanted to have this conversation first. And then if you have any specific questions about this approach, Julie and I are here to answer them, but also feel free to reach out to Tammy, who will relay this information back to us. And she and I will coordinate if there's any additional TA, or if we have a lot of questions that you as providers still need to answer, or need answers to. So more than happy to talk through any of the questions that we might have at this time or in the future.
Thank you guys so much. And just for a few clarifications, the study tool that they use is called EPIS, E-P-I-S. And so the EPIS number is a number that is assigned to each of the customers if they're in the study. So you will have an EPIC number, which is our system, that is the the unique number that we track for customers and we tell you guys to use. But what will happen if you look on the progress page or on the profile page for your customers, for the new cohort, they will not have an EPIS number, which is E-P-I-S. And then there's some conversation as far as the treatment group. What you can do is you can export the customers that you're currently working with also, and if there's and you can sort them, and if you do not have an EPIS number assigned to them, then they are the new cohort. So that's the identifying with that too. Plus the new cohort section.
Tammy, in the spreadsheet, it's called study ID number on the export.
Study ID. Okay, thanks for the clarification. So study ID number is what you would look for on the export. And is that the same thing on their profile page? Is it called study ID if you look at a customer profile?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And the other thing that they can do, too, is on the screen right now I have where they can pull customers by time period. Unfortunately, here we have study period, but we also have pilot period. So you guys have to combine pilot period and study period together.
But remember that this will be active customers, so it's not going to be all customers. So So, in June, and in this quarter, what are your active customers that you're currently working with? And of those active customers, how many are new cohort and how many are treatment group? And that treatment group includes the reengaged customers also. So you're going to be taking that percentage of if you have 50 customers that you're averaging out that you're working with within this quarter, and 75% of them are new cohort, 25% are the treatment group, then that's the percentage that you're going to use to attribute to your staffing costs. So, and it's the ones that we're doing are those hard costs. It's very difficult. I mean, you literally have to do time studies and document how much time you're spending on new customers and treatment group customers to come up with that. And so what we've negotiated is basically it's based upon number of customers served in each of those groups, and that percentage is attributed to this, your cost for staffing, your cost for overhead, and if there's any, equipment costs, which we usually don't have anything like that, but if you had anything that was supplies, small supplies and that, it'd be attributed to that. But still, your direct costs, you should be able to track vouchers that are directly to the customers for training, for support services, and for paid work experience. So the only thing they want for the direct costs like that is the treatment group only, or the study group. Does that make sense?
Do we need to talk about this form at all specifically, or is this a form that they're used to?
This should be a form that you're used to filling out. But the main thing is when this comes out, when they send this out for this next round, you will have costs. It's going to be a little more difficult for this round because your costs through May 14th are going to be all treatment group costs. They're going to all be all study costs because we didn't start the new cohort until May 14th. From May 14th on through June, and then I believe I think it goes to the end of June if I'm correct. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So you're going to be reporting March, April, April, May, and June. There we go. April, May, and June. Sorry, I had to get my months right here. You're going to be reporting on April, May, and June. So all of your April costs are going to be treatment, and all of your costs through the 14th of May will be treatment. After the 14th of May, you could have costs associated with the new cohort. So and then in June also. So when we get to do July, August, and September, it's going to be a blend of all of them. So it's what we ask you to do to the best of your ability is report these costs, to represent, the actual efforts related to the treatment group. So any other questions? Kelly or Julie, do you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
I don't think I do. Julie, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. I do see a question from Kelsey on the side that says, what's this information used for? And I'm assuming, do you mean what is the cost study data used for, Kelsey? Okay, yeah, so I can answer that question and just give a refresher to folks on the phone what we're talking about. So this data is collected across all of the providers in Illinois and rolled up to the level of the pilot and is used in our cost-benefit analysis, which will first describe the costs that Illinois incurred in delivering pilot services, so how the costs break down by type, how they change over time, and then the cost-benefit analysis will compare the costs of serving your average participant with the benefits of participating in the pilot over time. So we'll use the benefit data we're collecting through the other components of our evaluation to come up with a number that says it'll either be over or under 1 is a ratio, and we can also create a net benefit. So what's in dollar amounts, what's the benefit to the person minus the cost of serving the person. So that's really the purpose of all of this data collection, just as a refresher.
And Dee, that question that you just popped up, that's been answered. So the question that Mathmatica had with FNS was using that percentage ratio on staff and overhead costs to come up with a cost attributed to the treatment group. So that's already been answered.
Cool. All righty.
So you guys can be expecting these in the end of this week, and then they have 30 days, correct, Kelsey, to complete and return to you?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. And like I said, once again, if you guys have any questions when you're filling this out, hopefully the appropriate people are on the phone that are doing this. If they're not, you need to relay this information to them. And if they have any questions, you can reach out to me, and then Kelsey and Julie are also available for, answering your questions. And as always, they go through these, and I know if you've worked with them, they find little things that they have questions on. So if there's something you submit that they have questions on, they'll definitely follow back up with you. Thank you. I think we're good, Kelsey and Julie. Thanks so much for participating.
Thank you.
Kelly and Julie.
Kelly, sorry.
Thank you for talking to Kelsey.
I'm looking at Kelsey on the chat pod.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. So our next item on the agenda is program closeout. And I know that every agency had a phone call from one of the program assistants, but what we wanted to do was talk about programs closing out, and what we have right now these are the currently active agencies and when you plan to close out the date. I see on here Safe Haven would like to add a youth career pathway. So Frank or Judith, if you're on the call, let's talk afterward about adding a program. They do need to be short-term. We can't really add anything over, I guess, 5 months now as it is. We've got Albany Park closed down a couple of programs. Eric, if you happen to be on, you and I had talked about adding a couple of other short-term programs to your list. I'm sorry, Albany Park is Joe. Sorry. So let's talk about these things. Asian Human Services, you closed the programs, and then Eric, you and I were talking about adding some other short-term ones. So let's talk about getting those added in if we need to. Catholic Charities, you've still got your 3 programs. It says close now for the original closeout date, but now we have these new closeout dates. So Catholic Charities, as you're looking at these, please, we're going to include these in the minutes as well. So please look at these new dates to make sure that we've got something going on and that you can close these people out of training and still get them a job before the end of the grant period, which is, Tammy?
February? It will be. It will be once we do the modifications again. It'll be the end of February of 2019. But the thing, just to remember when you're looking at this, I mean, if we're closing out your programs and we close out all but one, you may not get a lot of referrals. So, and, DHS, wants us to be, still working with their customers and moving customers. So we need to find a way that we can continue to do short-term training programs, credentialing for these customers, but still have an opportunity to try and get them placed with employment. And then if we do need to get, as we continue to move down, in the months and we have less and less time, if we have to add, just work readiness components to this too, and we're going to discuss with DHS to see if they want us to do that. But that might be something we'll do down the road. But you have to make sure that you can complete the program and have an opportunity to get them employed, and then retention we can always work on during the closeout period. So just please revisit those.
I had a column showing that I just hid. Those were the original closing date when we were going to end the program. Eric, you would have had a conversation with Olivia or Taishiana about your programs. Yes, Judith, you will get a copy of this. It'll be included in the minute. Well, I might email this out separately. So, for example, Mantricon has these 2 programs. One's 52 weeks and one's 64 weeks. I know that Autumn is enrolling people in WIOA as well. So as long as you are co-enrolling in WIOA, then you can continue some of these programs, but they have to be co-enrolled in another training program that will pay for training. We have we also have the ability for you to add some additional programs. So, for example, Kelsey, if you've got a short-term program that doesn't happen to be on this list right now and you want to add it in, then we can do that as well. So we will email this out so that you can take a look. I'll email this out separately. We need answers squared away by the end of the month. Okay? And then, Tammy, you were talking about we might need to add something to everybody. What was that?
Well, as we progress and get to the point where it's going to be difficult to do short-term, even some short-term credentialing, and like I said, this is something we'll have to talk with DHS and see if they're okay, but just doing a work readiness, which the only problem with that is that's pretty much what this regular SNAP ENT does. But, you know, if that's something that they would like for us to do, we can always add that. So if we're getting into November and December and they're still wanting to refer customers, we'll have to see if that's something that we want to consider. But the whole intention of EPIC is credentialing, training, career pathways, and sustainability, and, you know, jobs that are, you know, that are living wage jobs.
The other thing is if you guys can find any online work at your own pace kind of programs, or if you have any of those kind of programs that when I was in college they called it independent study. So if you've got any of those kind of programs that you can add where they could zip through it really fast if they had the attention span, then you could add programs like that as well.
And I think some that we're kind of thinking is like on the admin side, you know, like if you're working in the office situations and, you can never go wrong with learning how to use the Microsoft Office suite.
Or learning how to say it either.
Yeah, there we go.
Eric is saying work readiness should be an easy sell in the voluntary county since we don't have SNAP ENT. Yeah. So if you got a little bit of work experience and the work readiness program put together, that could be something that we could promote. Okay, next item on the agenda is reengagement process. I'm going to skip an item and show you something different first. We just today got this uploaded, and it is the similar activity that I do with the DHS contacts. It is for the CBO contacts, and it shows who a primary contact is and a secondary contact. And then if you should happen to change your primary contact for your agency, I can make the adjustment in one fell swoop. So if I wanted to take Alana off of all of her cases and make it Orlando, I could do that in one fell swoop right here. One of the things that I noticed is I do not have a secondary contact for Asian Human Services. I do not have a secondary contact for Catholic Charities. I do not have, and then Jane Addams, we need to talk about what we're going to do with all of your stuff. I have no secondary contact for OAI because Krishina, if you're on the call, Sandra does not have an account active in EPIC. So we need a secondary contact for that. Okay, I'll make Fitzgerald. All right. So if you've got those, type them in the chat pod. I'll grab those. Eric, does Armand have an Illinois WorkNet account that has been promoted to Epic? We need to talk about that. We'll just talk Friday. Okay, I'll get Shane on there. I'll get Fitzgerald on there, and we'll get rolling with this. So we did this based on the conversations that we had when we were doing the in-person trainings. If anything has changed, we can make those changes for you, so just let me know. All right, next piece is the re-engagement process. We have just updated the re-engagement piece so that we have people that are going to go from their initial status to pending with that particular status. They'll meet with DHS, and then they will be marked as either eligible and get scheduled. They'll be marked as going to JPP, job placement program. They'll be marked as exempt and no longer want to participate. But what was happening with it originally was if they were going to get reengaged, when we marked them as reengaged, it moved everything out of their profile. So now we've reverted everybody who was on my list that I pulled as not enrolled to ineligible pending reengagement. And that is why right now there are in this brand new row, so we've got 2 brand new rows right here. That's why there's 102 people statewide in this row. So you may have some customers in your row, as Kelsey pointed out to me in an email earlier today, that are already done, are already out of your books a long time ago, but because they were still in that pending reengagement status and there was no updated information from DHS about what was happening with them, we reverted them to their ineligible status, and we're hoping that DHS will see the case notes and will mark these customers in the appropriate fashion. So for example, if they were hired and they are ineligible because of income, they'll mark them as ineligible again. Or if they are working part-time and are exempt because they haven't quite hit that boundary to become ineligible, then they'll mark them as exempt, and you can still go with the completion information that was in there. We're probably going to have a little bit of work to do with some of the completion items, again, because as we change these processes, we always find something that breaks. So I apologize for that up front, and you'll get notes from us about what we have to fix if we find that we have to fix things. Kelsey's asking, what would get someone into the customer pending reengagement previously enrolled row right now? Those are the people that, from a spreadsheet that I pulled, had a not enrolled status and were pending, SNAP eligible pending reengagement based on having that been marked by the DHS EPIC admin team. So if they were ineligible and then all of a sudden they became eligible again, maybe they lost their job, maybe something happened and they are going in again to the DHS offices, that's how they got to get that status again. And we are in discussion with DHS about how to treat customers who have to be reengaged that were completed for their 90-day retention. So we don't have a 100% answer for you on that one yet. So for the time being, I'm not going to be tracking with the CBOs about this reengagement piece, because that's not on you guys. It's on DHS to take care of the status eligibilities for these customers. So that's going to be a conversation I will be having with them over the next few days and on our TA call on the 27th. But I just wanted to let you know what the process is and why you're seeing a large number in there now. Most of those people had been sitting in the referral pending appointment has not been scheduled row, which is this row right here. So now they've just shifted up here because we went in and found all of the people who were being reengaged that weren't reporting in the proper row. And I see Kelsey typing, so I'm going to give her a second. I have IBIS printouts for several clients showing their quarterly income for the last year. If I can't get documentation from the employer, yes. Yes. Just upload those. Okay. All righty. Next on the agenda.
And just a quick follow-up on that IBIS, and we had this conversation that I had hoped we were going to be able to do with you guys, was getting access to the IBIS data. With the data sharing agreements and everything that's going on at the state levels, it's become very cumbersome, and there's a lot of different processes that we have to walk through with that. And you guys had an email from me saying you had to fill out this documentation like ASAP, and then we pulled it. Just because it was an all or nothing, so we had to have all of the information from the providers or none of it, because we're trying to get the IDES information connected in the EPIC system to the customers. And we're not going to be able to do that at a level where we can push it down to you guys. My hope is that at the state level we're going to be getting this information, and then so we can do verification and validation too. And then the hope would be that we'd be able to let you know, if you can't locate them, yes, this person is employed, but we won't be sharing any, information, any PI information without, down to you guys, because there's all the security issues that we have to go through, and you have to be on a data sharing agreement, and you have to have all those paperwork filled out. So I just wanted to share that with you.
And then Kelsey is asking, can we exit on that? Do you mean exit on the IBIS information? Oh, Tammy?
Yes, yeah. I mean, technically, and even in WEO, the IBIS information is the official information as far as employment, and that's what is used to do performance, on our WEO side. So, yes, we could be able to pull on that information and exit on that information. Like I said, what I would have loved to have seen is to be able to populate that information at what we call our super user level, so as the state people could see it. And then we could verify, that, they are employed with ABC or whatever, and they have this, and then have a little box that goes down to you guys that checks and says, yes, they're employed. But, that I don't think that's going to be feasible to do, just because of the amount of time left in this and the whole, data sharing, issues that we run into. But yes, we can definitely bring, let you know at least that they're employed.
Won't actually necessarily know the hours worked per week.
Yeah, but it could be something that if you can reach out to the customers, if they're employed, if you try another effort too and say, hey, I understand you're employed, give me the information, if it's possible. I mean, that may not even be possible to reach them.
The other option is to divide the dollar total that's on that IBIS report by 40 or 30 hours a week, and see if it works out to a livable wage. All right.
We're still trying.
If you have any more questions, if you want to send Tammy an email, then she can try and answer that for you. All right, next piece is, if you haven't already checked in, please check in by agency so that we can get you recorded on here. The next piece on the agenda is WEX, or permanent employers for survey. What we're going to be doing, we've got an online survey that we're going to be sharing, kind of like the one that all of you guys did. that we want to share with work experience employers or permanent employers with whom you have a relationship. So I know I was talking to one of the agencies up on the north side of town, and they have a relationship with a hospital where they send many of their CNA graduates. So if you've got a relationship like that with somebody, please send me that information so that we can include them on the survey. And I would like those names and contact phone number or email by the 25th. So if you could get that information to me, that would be super phenomenal. And along that same line, we are ready to start trying to schedule video recording for the success stories that we want to record and have the professional videographer record those. He's going to be doing interviews. So if you have not already sent the information to epic@illinoisworknet.com so that Natasha can take care of that, we need that by the 25th as well. So those, we are going to start with Decatur. So Courtney, if you're on the call, we're going to start with you on customers and that great story that you've got going on out there too. So last but not least on the agenda, we have updates, and I'll put it in the notes from the webinar, Eric, so that we can get that going out too. And I'll try to get those notes done today and out by first thing in the morning. True, Tammy. Okay, so on the updates, I don't know if you guys ever go to this updates page, but we do have this list of what happens when. And so on our updates page, we have an initial appointment 2151 being automatically uploaded to the customer progress page once an appointment is confirmed by DHS, just as a reference point for you. It is happening for the new cohort, and I just asked the programmer if he could do that for any appointment that gets updated. And so if I know that Eric and I were talking earlier that he had rescheduled a customer. So what you would probably do is just remove that first one so that you don't get confused. But what will be nice about this is you have a point of reference, so because the dates change on the documents when you download them. So that will work. That will help. On the control dashboard, if any of you are also working with control dashboard customers, it now has a date range where you can select that feature. Reengagement customers, we went through that process just now. There was a correction made to the pre-random assignment report to numbers that were displaying improperly, and only EPIC providers are allowed to select the benchmark and the ISTEP reports now. And last but not least, CBO Context update. I was super happy about that one. If CBO changes the primary or secondary contact, super admin will have the ability to change all customers of that agency to the new primary contact. If a primary contact receives a case note message, the designated secondary contact receives the same message, so that in the event that the primary contact is out, either on vacation or for a medical leave, then the secondary contact will get the message and can take action if we need that done. And then there's a few back from July 3rd that we missed because of our meeting. Customer who withdrew from study was removed from a row requiring action. White row was added to the application section to track customers who have not yet had their intake appointment with a CBO, and we repaired the status flow for customers requiring follow-up action on a number of customers to have them report to the correct row and then track through the system properly. So a lot of times when we find one boo-boo, we get 3 more. So that's it for today. If we have anything else, we will make sure that we include it in the updates. I want to check.
I will give you one more update. DHS is working on their IGA with us. It's actually called a Unified Intergovernmental Agreement that has to follow the GATA process. So it is moving. I'm hoping within the next week or two we're going to be modifying the grants again, and it's going to incorporate all the budget changes and the new cohort additional numbers. And then what I will do is send out the scope of work that we'll plan on using in the modification to you prior, just so you can verify again. I know we've had conversations on the budget line items and the numbers several times. So you can verify one more time before we modify. So I just wanted to bring that. I'm hoping that we'll have this done within the next couple of weeks, pending the, like I said, once again, the UIGA.
Yes, Kendra, I'm going to send out the closing programs out separately. Eric, if you're still on the call from Asian Human Services, do a little check mark box in this, please check in by agency. I see you. Okay. So if you can check in there. And then if anybody else is on the call that has not checked in, please do that. And other than that, I'll try and get these notes out today. Oh, sorry, Eric Grebner. Okay, let's see. Autumn. The new cohort customers I've recently enrolled, and they are already co-enrolled. Most of the career services are done before services are initiated. Oh, okay, Tammy. Autumn is co-enrolling some WIOA customers, and the tape test and a couple of other things were done prior to them getting approved by DHS. Should or can she list those items in the customer's I-STEP?
Yeah, and you should. And tape tests, correct me if I'm wrong, because you may know WIOA better than I think they're good for a year. So yes, you should be able to. You should do that.
Well, Kelsey, we know that she
you.
can. We know that she physically can. It's just a matter of whether she should for EPIC. That was the question.
Yes, I would identify those tape tests in their assessments.
All right, so if you're co-enrolling with WIOA and you've got somebody that was already taking some things, you can use some of that activity for your new EPIC customers. All right, and I see Kendra typing. Co-enrollment starts after January 20. No, you can start co-enrolling them now, but the whole ball of wax is if you have a program that is longer than the end of January in 2019, they have to be co-enrolled.
And keep in mind, if you have another program, it may not be a WIOA program, but if you have another type of a program that could extend their training after EPIC is done, you can put them in that also, and then you would just exit them as enrolled in higher training education. So, and that's a great outcome too. So just, keep in mind that, and that's something else we can have conversations when we're talking about performance and benchmarks on that. Because if they can continue their education in another funding source, then that's a positive.
All right. I've got some names in the check-in that I don't recognize at all. So I'm just curious as to if we've got new employees at some of the agencies that we haven't met yet.
And some of these may be the fiscal staff that does a data cost study.
Oh, and I would know
we
them.
invited them to come on if they dealt with a data cost study workbook.
Eric says we have spies. I see this on here, Edie. So it's we've got a Roshana Gerasimov and a Renee Barnes. So those could be those fiscal people. And then we've got a Tanya Huerta and Yvette Moore. So Not quite sure who some of these folks are, but that's okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now we're getting some answers. All righty. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope we were able to help you on some of these items. And if you've got any questions, please let us know. I see one more person typing, so let me see if, okay, nothing in the chat box. So have a great rest of your day, and we will talk on August 1st, if not before. Have a great day.